Mark Williams-Thomas, who's a former police officer who works in child protection. Mark, what's your reaction to what you've been hearing over the last 45 minutes?
Well, I'm very pleased. I'm glad that they've come out, certainly now, and saying that they don't support it. I think the headlines this morning were very worrying, of course, and the parents were at home thinking, well, what does this really mean? I think the detail of it is what's really important, and the detail has now come out. I think it's very clear to see that actually neither this government or the previous government support this idea of allowing sex offenders and paedophiles to gain access back again, having justified that they are no longer a risk, is ridiculous. Let's remember the rights of the victims, and the rights of the victims, how they have to continue with their offence for the rest of their life. So it should be no different for an offender. And what, of course, it does do is it now sets out very clearly that the decisions to allow an individual to appeal after that 15 years sits with the police, and quite rightly it should sit with the police, not with the courts, not with anybody else, but with the police to be able to determine that. My only slight concern I have now, and it is a slight concern because I think we mustn't get worried about this, and I don't think that either the police or legislation is going to allow these individuals to come back. Yes, they might have a right to appeal, but I suspect that very few will be successful.
Let's deal with the actuality of it. What's the record when somebody comes off the register in terms of reoffending?
Well, the amount of people who reoffend having committed an offence, and I'm particularly talking about offences against children, is very high. But the problem we have here is that the large majority of those people who commit offences against children, if they're caught once, the likelihood of them being caught again is very slim. Let me use a statistic. People who commit offences online have been committing offences for 6 years prior to being caught for the first time. We are dealing with the most devious, calculated individuals, and they are very, very clear about how they offend, and they will learn from the first time they're caught. And I can tell you that my experience, and I deal with child sex offenders almost every day, is that they don't change. They will continue to offend in very, very much the same way as an alcoholic will always be an alcoholic till they take the next drink. There is no cure for paedophilia. All there is treatment which enables the individual to be able to control and understand their offending behaviour and not put themselves into a position where they have either access or opportunity to offend.
So you would advocate, Mark Williams-Thomas, that the sex offenders register is quite simply for life? That would be your solution? You're on it, you're on it?
Well, the sex offenders register is very clear about if it's 30 months or more as a term served, then you would be on the sex offenders register for life, and that is absolutely how it should be. There are a number of people who will go on the sex offenders for a shorter period than that, depending on the sentence they're given, and that is fine, and those people are appropriate. But if you get 30 months or more, then it is quite right that you should sit on that register. And let's be clear about what the register is. There isn't a national register. It's maintained by individual police forces, and the requirements upon it are actually not very onerous, and I'm very pleased that the government have come out and saying they're going to tighten up. The loophole that you could travel out of the country for 3 days and not have to register is absolutely ridiculous, and we do know that offenders were using that loophole to go to other countries, certainly other European countries, and travel back to commit their offences without coming to notice.
Okay, Vicky Price is here, economist. I just want to bring you in here with Mark.
Oh, thank you. Well, it's being an economist, I want to look at the stats really, and what worried me about that interview you just had is that actually, from what I understand it, we don't have the data to suggest to us whether being on a register actually reduces reoffending or not. So from what I heard, people can reoffend but just don't get found out. So what exactly does the register do?
Okay, Mark?
No, but what it does do by being on the register is enables the police and those parts of MAPA, the Multi-Agency Public Protection, to be able to monitor you. So if you are on the sex offenders register, then you get some kind of monitoring, and your level will be determined to the amount of exposure and amount of contact you will have with those authorities. So there is a control mechanism there. If you aren't on the sex offenders register at all and you move to another location, you will go under the radar. So that's why it's really important that these people should maintain themselves and they should remain on the sex offenders register, because not to do so is a criminal offence. And that then enables the police, the probation, the housing, social services to coordinate and determine risk of that individual and what is required to monitor them.
So what's the most important thing for you? You're working with it every day. This idea of 15 years from release, no automatic appeal of being on the sex offenders register, or is the best thing for you the fact that it's highlighted these loopholes that can see people on it leave the country for 3 days, can see them change the name by deed poll and therefore absolutely disappear?
Well, I think they're both very separate issues, but they are both key issues. I mean, it's very, very important. If people stay on the sex offender register, I don't agree that after a period of 15 years they should appeal. But I think they will appeal, and I doubt very much any of them or many of them will be successful, because I think the determination from the police will be that that risk still exists. Closing the loopholes of the law, I'm very, very pleased, and the Home Office have come out very clearly and identified what those loopholes are. They're going to close those loopholes, and I welcome that.
Okay, thank you very much, Mark. Stephen Williams.